Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at the King of Wands as the obstacle and the Queen of Swords as the opportunity. Kind of looks like they're looking at each other. They're having a little showdown. Alright, let's get started here. As far as an obstacle is concerned, this could be something like impatience, um, just bursting with energy. The feeling of having so much motivation, potential, but you're not allowed to move. You're not allowed to go after that thing. So there's certainly an element of that kind of feeling like you're just being overwhelmed with the desire to do something, and yet there's something that isn't letting you do it. This is a king. This is an individual who has, attained a position of power, of authority through their actions, but now that position itself is restricting them, preventing them. So this is like, metaphorically, this is the kind of individual who got to become a king by being a man of action, going out, fighting, conquering things, and now his reward for that is he has to sit still and he can't move around. This is someone who still really desires to get back out there. Um, One of the other dangers associated with this card is this is an individual who, is strong. They got to where they were through, countless successes, um, in terms of feats of action, let's say. But that makes a person arrogant. So whether this is a warning of your own arrogance and your own impatience getting in the way, or having to face someone who is impatient, arrogant, that is in this position of power. If it's the if it's the former, then you know it might be necessary to recognize that you got to the place you were for certain reasons. It might be a good idea to be mindful and thankful and have some gratitude of the things you have. This guy here, he's ready to abandon the throne. He's ready to let it go. He wants to go back out there. This could also, in a way, symbolize something like, you know, uh, a really like a charming, sexually confident seducer who energetically pursues some object of his affection, and then as soon as he has it, as soon as there's this relationship, let's say, is established, this establishment comes into fruition. Well, then he wants to get back out there. He wants to keep fighting for something. The staff that he's holding on to with his right hand, he's touching the ground with it. He's not. It's not resting on that established stone that makes up his rule wherever he is now. His other hand kind of looks clenched. Um, yeah, he's just roaring to go. If this symbolizes an individual that's an obstacle that's in your way, um, appealing to those desires could certainly be one way of interacting with the situation. There's a lot of bosses, political leaders, whatever, people that might be in charge of you, that in the day-to-day world that you see them in are required to really restrain themselves, in terms of how they express themselves physically, how they exert their energy. They have to succumb to the bureaucracy of their position. But it might be a good idea, let's say, if that's getting in the way, that's the kind of boss or superior that you ask out to some physically challenging activity. Like if you could go play some full contact football with your boss. Like this is the kind of boss that would be into that. That'd be up for like demonstrating that they're still energetic and strong. That might be something they appreciate. And again, on the flip side, if this is if this is an individual for whom that desire is getting in the way of them being able to do their job properly, then encouraging that might be a bad idea. in terms of the in terms of the Marseille deck, I think it's one of the interesting differences is that the king is armored, and I think that that's a reminder of something about people who are active, who are out in the world. Um, if you go out into the world enough and spend enough time adventuring and fighting, being active, uh, it might make sense to you to armor yourself. And I think that one of the warnings here might be to mistake someone's armor as some sort of weakness. There's a lot of people that have armor because they're actually very strong and very experienced, and they know that it will have its use, you know. So that's one key difference I think between the Marseille and the Waite deck, because the king on the right, he's wearing very looks like very comfortable robes. His red the red part of his head has, I know it's been described as a helmet, and then also has red hair, so it's a little hard to tell there. As far as I'm concerned, one of the other things with the Roi de Baton, with the Marseille king, is I find the position of his staff to be pretty interesting. It looks like it's going down to his foot, and then it's going all the way up to his head. And I kind of see this as a visual metaphor that is maybe aiming to put forth the idea that this is a person they got movement on their mind, you know. The shoes are red. The shoes are the symbol of the suit. Wands, red, this kind of potent, possibly sexual energy. That the thing that's making this guy shifty, that makes him want to move around, is the pursuit of this, and that this largely weighs on his mind. Now, being the king, the place that the king occupies within the deck, in my opinion, isn't at the end. I don't see it like in a deck of cards where after the 10, you get the jack, queen, king, ace kind of thing. See, the king is occupying the space between the 6 and the 7. So this is, if you consider the numerological interpretations of 6s and 7s, this is a person who's between the kind of stable, receptive 6 and the call for new things and new experiences of the 7. The 7 is particularly, I think, aimed at new directions that are conceptual. So I think that the Marseille card has an interesting way of possibly communicating this. He's motivated by this kind of, he wants to move, he wants to experience passion, maybe, wants to get sexual, that kind of stuff. Nonetheless, this translates to him, this goes to his head, but he's still an individual who is entertaining these desires, and he's thinking them out. This isn't someone who is absent of mind. He's not just mindlessly pursuing these things. There is a lot of thought going into how those kind of desires can best be put into action. So I think that's an interesting, also, it's an interesting thing to consider if this is representing someone in your life that you know. There are certainly people that are mindlessly motivated by the pursuit of sex and action and adventure, and then there are people who are like the warrior poets of those pursuits. They've those desires are something that they've consciously been integrating into themselves, considering very deeply, taking very seriously. And then opportunity, Queen of Swords. Yeah, I really like how they just seem to kind of be facing each other. And check this out too. This is just maybe a funny coincidence. The Waite cards, they both look like redheads, right? And then the Marseille cards, they're both blondes. Very interesting. Okay, Queen. This is, I think this card to me represents a type of a type of wisdom, an attainment of truth, of fact, of reality. That's it's a little sad maybe. It's the kind of wisdom that comes from experiences that aren't necessarily all good. I like that this queen is depicted above the clouds. Her head is out of the clouds. You know, there's a common expression, get your head out of the clouds. And sometimes, well, actually most of the time, I think that's meant to imply that your head is it's the things you're considering are too high, they're too lofty, they're too up there. And saying get your head out of the clouds is kind of like saying come back down to the ground, back to this kind of reality. Stop spending your time thinking about these things, right? I think here this is kind of the opposite. This is someone who has gotten their head out of the clouds by surpassing that layer of clouds and emerging on top of it, right? There's there's one bird in the sky. There's a singular bird that occupies that space. I think this card can depict some of the loneliness. Like it's at the you know when thinking of the intellectual mountain of truth and knowledge and wisdom, it's lonely at the top, right? Um, it the path to it, I think, is like this character is often thought of as a widow. Um, I'm not sure of the symbolic uh, history of the kind of thing she's wearing around her wrist. That's one of the things I've heard some people say that that's a type of charm that people used to wear to indicate that they were widowed. I'm not familiar with it, so I'm just kind of going on what is the somewhat commonly accepted interpretation. But yeah, but going through, let's say, a very difficult and traumatic experience like that, um, coming out the other side with experience, with knowledge, with some idea of how things really are. Ignorance is bliss because you know often ignorance is not knowing those hard truths, those hard realities, but at the same time being able to navigate your way through the world skillfully, in my opinion, is certainly a byproduct of having more wisdom and a higher ability to reason. I think this card just says that it comes at a price, and as an opportunity, it could imply that there is an opportunity for you to you might be experiencing suffering, you might be experiencing something tough, but I think one of the opportunities that this could suggest is that these experiences, these painful experiences, are extremely valuable if you learn from them, if you don't dwell on them as as an opportunity for new trauma, new reasons to be sad. If you instead look at them as something that you could learn from, that could make you a wiser individual. I think that could be an interpretation of the card. Another one is that there's more literally an individual who can play this role. So maybe if let's say if you're seeking advice, if you're seeking knowledge, it might be opportune of you to consider who is someone that is older, that's possibly gone through some shit and has come out wiser. This is also the kind of person who might be pretty stern. They might be pretty unapologetic about their opinions. The sword of abstraction can cut pretty hard, especially with someone who is not really holding back giving their opinions. But again, the opportunity there is the people that have become wise because of their painful experiences might pass on some of that pain in passing on their knowledge, but they are nonetheless passing on their knowledge as well. So that's kind of interesting. With the Marseille card, one of the interesting differences, in my opinion, is that the sword has what appears to be a red blade. I believe that this is this is often interpreted as the sword being sheathed in some sort of scabbard or cover, and that being red, being this action action color. Red is the color of wands and passion and activity. That there's something about a sheathed sword that symbolizes the desire to unsheath it. And so this in a way is kind of makes me think of someone who is out there. It's an individual who is looking for the opportunity to unsheath that sword, which both symbolizes knowledge and the intellect, as well as just the ability to reasonably abstract situations. So this could be someone who is really looking forward to the opportunity of passing judgment. If this could symbolize, let's say, a female mentor who would would be happy to offer mentorship. Would not maybe ask for anything in return, because she's in a position where she's highly motivated to uh, express her opinions on topics, to pass judgment, and that as a person who is established, this is a queen after all, that this would be something really valuable to take advantage of. To maybe ask yourself, who do I know that has a lot of experience and who is very eager to share this experience. Um, that's it. So we got this kind of maybe arrogant, possibly dangerously motivated towards action, abandoning their post. Having itchy, having the kind of itch for action, and then a somewhat a somewhat scarred but nonetheless wiser individual in the position to offer really good advice, to pass on knowledge, or to judge situations in a really effective way. Hope you enjoyed this. Bonk the like button if you did. Subscribe to stay up to date on the daily videos. And as always, leave a comment to be entered for the weekly free reading draw. Competition, as of yet, is extremely favorable. It's we're in a state of very low competition. So I would suggest maybe take advantage of that while you still can. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.